Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to introduce our guest today for Faces and Places in Fashion. I'll start by reading his bio, although he's already joined me on the stage. Salvatore Cesarani was born in 1939 to Vincenzo and Carmela in Astoria, Queens, New York. Salvatore Joseph Cesarani was the youngest of 4 siblings and the first to be born in the United States. His parents were tailors from Italy, and from a very young age, he grew up to understand the importance of well-made clothing. From 1954 to 1957, Mr. Cesarani attended the Central High School of Needles Trades, now known as the High School of Fashion Industries, and went on to study illustration and design at FIT from 1957 to 1958. In 1995, Mr. Cesarani returned to college and completed his bachelor's degree in professional studies from Empire State College, State University of New York, and then he went on to serve in the U.S. military from 1958 to 1960, traveling to Germany and Italy as a specialist 4th class. Mr. Cesarani has over 40 years of experience in the fashion industry. He began his professional career as a young designer of women's junior sportswear at Bobby Brooks Clothing from 1961 to 1963. And in the mid-1960s, he was the fashion display coordinator for Paul Stewart in their Madison Avenue flagship menswear store. In the early 1970s, he became the merchandising director for Polo by Ralph Lauren. And by the mid-1970s, Sal began to design menswear under his own name, Cesarani and Salvatore J. Cesarani. He introduced his women's wear collection in 1977, and in 1978, Sal was one of a handful of trailblazing designers that catapulted American menswear into the global marketplace through the Men's Fashion Association, MFA, and its first American men's fashion shows for wholesale buyers and the press. Never before did American menswear have such a platform for garnering domestic and international attention. This led to new markets for his brand in Canada, Europe, and Asia, as well as connecting him to other international projects. In 1980, Cesarani was invited by the Japanese activewear company, ASICS, to design the uniforms for the torchbearer and the ceremonial officials in the 1980 Winter Olympic Games in Lake Placid, New York. He has been design licensing agreements in the United States, Japan, and Italy. He is the designer and president of Cesarani and SJC Concepts, Inc. Awards, and Sal has been the recipient of the following awards: Special Coty Award for Menswear in 1974 and 1975. Welcome. Please fill in. Coty Award for Menswear in 1976, Fashion Group Award of Boston in 1977, and the Coty Award Return Award in 1982. There's plenty of seats over here. Mr. Cesarani has been teaching fashion design students since 1999. For over 15 years until his retirement, he taught at Parsons School of Design, Inc., and in 2006, he was invited to teach part-time adjunct here at FIT, where he continues to work with aspiring young designers in his Visual Design Concept 3 course. He is a member of the Council of Fashion Designers of America, CFDA, and is a retired member of the Advisory Board of the Fashion Crafts Educational Commission of the High School of Fashion Industries, and was a founding member of the New York Advisory Board of the Shannon Rogers and Jerry Silverman School of Fashion Design and Merchandising at Kent State University, Ohio. Amazing. What a tribute. Thank you for being here.
Can you hear me?
Should be flicked on, right? Yeah. Perfect.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks. Well, I think what we'd like to do is to start off to hear a little bit more about you and, starting with your early days, if you could tell us a little bit more about your family and how you became interested in fashion originally.
Yeah, that's a very long story, but I will try to be brief.
Yeah.
My parents were immigrants.
We got time.
Hold the microphone close to your face.
Yeah. My parents were immigrants. They came from Italy, and they only had a craft in mind that they did, which was sewing and making clothes. And so they worked. Thank you, Mr. Ikonen. Yes, good to see you. And so it was an incredible opportunity for me. They wanted me to be in this world of fashion and style.
Yeah.
And so the school that I went to was Central Needle Trades, which became later on the High School of Fashion Industries. And it was really only the 7th, 8th, and 9th floor on 24th Street of the Central Needle Trades, becoming the high school of fashion industries. So it was a big opportunity for me, and I learned a great deal as a kid. And I worked part-time. I was a tech student, which allowed me to go into college and also gave me trade classes, industry-wise classes, and I learned pattern making and draping and cutting and sewing. So I did all of that early on, and I worked in the industry with part-time jobs. So it was, very rewarding for me because there was a thriving business at hand at the time. And so it just put me to the straight and narrow. And so to answer that question about history, and that's where it became very important for me.
He says, hold the microphone a little closer.
Oh, okay. So can you all hear me? Am I good? Am I loud? Okay. So the thing is that my parents instilled in me this thing about becoming a tailor or becoming someone within the industry, and I thought, well, my dreams are going to be a little further than that if I chose to do so, and so I did. I went on to, after graduation, I went on to FIT college, which was in that same building on 24th Street, and then I went into the service. I went into what was called the Scouts and 3rd Armored Division, where we were combat ready because there was this Berlin crisis that we were all faced with. And I sucked it up, and I became a gentleman and a man and a soldier. So, and then I wanted to come back and make sure that I could do all the right things in the world and become a designer.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm making a face because we have a big crowd coming in the door. I want to make sure there's enough seats here. We have a few seats over here. You're probably
Hi, guys.
8 over here.
Hi, Fern. Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Please fill in.
Please.
Yeah.
Hi. How are you? Good to see you, Charlie. Good to see you. Good to see Stan. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks so much. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, God. Francois. I need some cologne. Duffy. Could you get, there's Jeff, Mr. Hickey. Mr. Hickey. Hi, how are you? Good kids, my students. See, I'm so glad. I'm glad.
It's great.
Hi.
Those of you who don't have a seat, if you want one, we can open up the doors a bit too. And students, take note, because this is a sign of a person who has made great and loving connections throughout a nice long career. So this is where you want to be, filling a room.
That's what
Everyone's still wanting to be around you after all these years. That means you did a great job.
it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I called a lot of people. Are you there? Are you still there? Stu, I'm really proud that you're here. Honestly, thank you so much.
So sorry, you were mid-launch into the start of your career.
I actually
you wanted to aim bigger than being a tailor.
After working on 7th Avenue, and I worked with several key people. I worked with 3 firms in particular.
You know what? Wait 1 second.
No problem. Thank you. I'm overwhelmed. I swear it's on. And
Why don't you? The mic is on. He has to put it up to his mouth so he can hear me.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Good. Anyway, my career actually started with my parents insisting that I go into the fashion world in a sense because they wanted me to be a tailor. And so from that point, and in the high school level, and my education level at the High School of Fashion Industries, which was then called Central Needle Trades, I then went into FIT, and that was during 57 and 58. So that's a long time ago. I had lots of hair then. And so it was the most enjoyable part of my learning experiences because working on 7th Avenue was nothing like it would be today. And I was really fortunate to meet people like Stuart Chrysler, et cetera. And, Stan Herman is an example that when Nancy and I were going to school, we would go to Lord & Taylor's to look at the windows to see the various designers that, were going to be there. And it's in my notes, but in any event, I mean, I am like honored, to see these people and worked with these people at one point in time in my life. So, Don Simonelli, I'm trying to think of all the names, and Leo Narducci, and, they were people that I idolized and admired, while we were in school. I mean, we studied those people, and you never found a Women's Wear Daily without Stephen Stippleman on the cover. I mean, so those are things that are very important to me, and I'm still in awe of all of that. I think you have the next question.
Well, so you've taken us through your time through FIT, and how did you get that first job?
The first job, it was like, I was doing it before FIT and during FIT. I worked in a costume sewing ballerina dresses or whatever.
Wow.
And then when I got my first few jobs, it was with the Baker brothers. They had Sport Tempo, and they were two brilliant brothers that the only treat I had was having a pastrami sandwich on a Wednesday night when we had fashion meetings. But I literally made the first pattern. I draped it and cut it and sewed it, and then I saw my clothes at Bloomingdale's, which was incredible. I mean, it didn't have my label, but it was things that I was a part of with the company. And then my final opportunity in women's wear was Bobby Brooks. It was a junior sportswear house and dress house. And they were on Park Avenue, would you believe? And so I did all of that work and running around, but we worked with somebody called a merchandiser, where she would select the fabrics and we had to like design in those fabrics, or else we were dead if we didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were dead if we didn't do it. But it was an incredible opportunity, and so I learned from all of that. The kids that I grew up at the high school level, and at Nancy, how are you? So at the high school level were brilliant kids, because their parents, like mine, said to them, you got to come and start the factory. You got to work with us in the factory in Brooklyn, wherever. So these are things that I retained in my head. So when I got on to the next opportunity, which was whoever that other person.
Yeah, so you joined Ralph Lauren, and you were one of the first, less than 10, I'm not sure the exact number, I'm sure.
It was less than 10.
Yeah.
But I know that there was a young man named Jeffrey Banks with me.
Yeah.
And there was Joe Barada, who was with us, and there was a couple of salespeople. And it was, you want to give me, I just wanted to take a deep breath. It was an overwhelming experience, of which I literally led the band in a sense, because he had a gentleman who was Mike Bernstein, who was the financial guy, and Mike said to me when I go out into the market with him, make sure you keep him in budget. And I said, what are you talking about? He's the president of the company. And so I merchandised neckwear with Ralph. The piece goods people that we bought fabric from, that we had to create shirting fabrics for both men's and women's. And so
we're just going to pivot you slightly so that the whole room can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Joe, Robert, oh my goodness. Hi, how are you? Oh, I got it. I can do it. I swear.
She's
sorry.
talented.
I'm so sorry. I'm overwhelmed, but Jerry, thanks for coming. So the thing that was so important to me is that here I was. I mean, I was out of the service. I finished working at the junior houses, and I said, and Ralph, I went to work for Paul Stewart's at the time, and I said, I'm going to be in the display and merchandising area, because Mr. Grodd said to me, Nick Parker from Frank Brothers and Roger Kent said, you got to be here for the job. So I did it. And Ralph I would sell his ties in the window, because I always coordinated the clothes, and the windows became somewhat world famous, and they, as you know, later on in life, they really did become famous. And so I was grateful for that opportunity. And, and Ralph said, I'm going to start a business. I have Norman Hilton who wants to back me. Would you be kind enough to help me? And I said, yeah. I said, I'll help you with the showroom, the studio, whatever. And I did. And his father was an incredible painter, did trompe-l'oeil fireplace, and he was a, brilliant older gentleman and would say, "Solly, you're doing good with my son, right?" So, of course, "I love you, son." And I was really not only Ralph's associate and friend, I was really good friends with him. I couldn't let anything go wrong when I was there. And so I worked there several years, and I did the merchandising of neckwear, the merchandising of shirting fabrics. I still can't remember the name of the shirting people that we bought from. And the older gentleman that would come up and say, "You got to divide those goods. When are we going to do that?" Because we needed to do a job which needed to be really done in the right way. And then we would buy domestic clothing. I mean, you also bought clothing in Italy and in England, because Ralph loved the most luxurious fabrics.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I think, I don't know if what you're telling us are your fondest memories of working at Ralph Lauren in those early days, but I think we'd love to hear some if you have some.
You want to hear some of those? One of the fondest memories that I remember having was that I was working literally 24/7. I mean, I was there even on a Saturday, even sometimes on a Sunday if I needed to, because I needed to organize them. We had one production man, Tom Kelly, who was involved in Just Pants. So we had to communicate with the factory in Lanham in Massachusetts. And there were so many things, and Ralph would say, "Well, let's do this, this, and this." But we didn't have anyone to literally organize that. And so I took it upon myself in certain things. And the one thing that happened on that one Saturday, that I got a phone call from a Theone Aldridge who was doing a little night music, and she said to me, "I need knickers for my play. Do you think you can get me knickers?" I said, "Well, Abercrombie and Fitch would have had them." I think it's my phone. Okay, we just have to oh God, I don't know what this number is, but I'm so sorry. I got it done. So what happened?
For joining us.
Don't you just love this interview? So what happened was, I said to her, "Theone, you can go to Abercrombie and Fitch, and I don't know whether you're going to be able to get it." And she said, "Oh no, whatever. Do you have anything like white flannel?" And I said, "Yeah, we have white flannels. I could." And our knee was like 22, 23, and we had 24 bottoms, so we did have a full. Get on the phone. Yeah, thanks. Just hang up on them. It's my son. So I said, "Yeah," I said, "I can pull them for you," which I did. And she was ever so thankful, because here was The Great Gatsby, the film that was going to put Ralph in total recognition for his design capabilities, right? And so I was in awe of that. And it sounded like that movie Working Woman, where she would read the newspaper, and then all of a sudden I would see Theone Aldridge is going to be getting the job for The Great Gatsby film, and I said, "Let me invite her up." And Jeff, you remember that, right? And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And I got in contact with her, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Cesarani, thank you so much. I would love to see, Ralph's clothes and everything else." And I coordinated the showrooms. I mean, and they were like meticulous. When you walked in there, it was like polo. And so because of my experiences, okay. So in any event, it was like the light of my life, because Ralph was such a good person to work with.
Yeah.
And I was really, I would go through hoops to be with him, to do what I had to do with him. And when we started the women's wear, an angel flew over the company, and it was Stuart Chrysler, because I was making patterns. I was listening to so-and-so and so-and-so, and I had to do fittings on these people. And I said, no. We have to have a standard. We have to go to a 6, 8, 10, 12. I don't care about that French shirt maker that is doing shirts. We need to fill a woman who's going to be a size 6 or 8 or 10. Anything and everything we did, and that was done for Ralph, blew out at Bloomingdale's instantaneously. Ask Jeff. Jeff can tell you everything that appeared in Ralph's women's wear.
The best feeling.
But I used the factories that I knew in Brooklyn to make the shirtwaist dress, to make the skirts. Remember that? I mean, and of course I was exhausted, but I mean, it was very well rewarded. Ralph was the kind of individual that would say, look, we're going to go, there's Carnegie Hall is doing Fred Astaire. Do you want to go? I said, yeah, but can we afford to go? Yeah, we could afford to go. Don't worry about it. We're going to go. We'll get a limousine and we'll go. And so we would. And then all of a sudden, Ralph said, where's all these people going? I said, oh, there's a party. Well, here, follow me. And I went upstairs, and that's where that picture came from. The press took a picture of us going upstairs and Ralph meeting. And I said, Ralph, come in front of me and meet Fred Astaire. So that was one of the good things.
Yeah.
There's lots more, but
well, we can come back to that. But there's a lot of students in the room who want to launch their own brand, and I wonder if you have anything that you glean from those early days at Ralph Lauren that makes you understand why he took that company of less than 10 employees and is now more than 18,000 employees worldwide.
Yes.
What about? Let alone the amount of money they're making, but what about the brand or what about the man made it so successful?
It's very important, that they understand what we're teaching them as professors here at the university. And I have students that are on their toes, really doing an incredible job. And social media has been the easiest way for some of them to make the one-of-a-kind clothes, and they're getting that recognition. But I'm hoping that we can open up 7th Avenue again, and that 7th Avenue, because it's rent efficient today, because they need people, that we could, the retailers, the stores like Bloomingdale's and Saks and Nordstrom's can develop and show their wares. Instead, we show them at the FIT Museum, but to show their clothes, even at the trade shows, that's important. I want the kids to get involved, understand the trade shows, understand how they can sell a product, because that's what's alive today for them.
Yeah.
But that's another world. That's another class. I can't do that in visual design concept, but I do mention that to them only briefly because I have to stay focused for what I'm doing. I think I'm focused here, right? So, but it's important for them. Of course, there are ups and downs. I mean, I suffered a great deal of pain, of trying to get to the next step because we just couldn't afford to do it. We couldn't afford to expand. Fortunately for me, the Japanese and Canada, they were like influential in my life. And then I had J. Mar Ruby, Hart Schaffner Marks that became my licensees. It said, you have it, take it to where you wanted to go. And we were like a $20+ million business at one point in time. So I can give them that hope and aspiration to do that. They have to stay steadfast. They have to really work and do their projects and do what they need to do. Right? Right? They're shaking their heads. I know who my kids are. They're shaking their heads. So that's part of it. The downfall that I had in the women's wear business, and I can say this to you, Mademoiselle was on, Nancy Donahue wore a beautiful jade jacket. Makes me crazy. But the women's wear business was the most successful. It doubled my men's wear at one point in time. Wow. But they did something dishonest, and for years I was trying to fight to keep my name back. And so I lost a lot of momentum because of it, because they were not allowed to sell X amount of dollars off price. And we were very good. We stipulated an intelligent contract. And what happened was, they didn't want to sell it off price. What they did is they took last year's best-selling styles and put them into last year's fabrics and then bought into that. And I wasn't able to earn a dime for it. And so that was, in itself, disastrous for me. I couldn't cope with that because it just drained me of money to have to do a lawsuit. But my contracts were really pure, that when the judge judged and said to them, excuse me, you're wrong, to them, and said he's right, and just like Tom Brown just got something because he was doing ribbons on his clothes. I mean, that's what I went through, but we went through it in a time that it was draining for me financially.
Yeah.
And so I just said, that's it, I'm not going to deal with that. But I also, think that it's important for these kids to know, and my students, yours, that they need to put their minds to this work. I mean, I only learned from my draping class. I only learned from batter making. And then, of course, the other avenue is finding those people to help you make those goods.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, I guess let's take it back a step. And I'm just wondering when you decided that you wanted to launch your own brand and
Well,
how you got that started.
Skipped right over that, didn't I?
You jumped to the end.
Well, because actually, I went to work for a company called Joseph and Fison Menswear, and they wanted me to do a menswear collection, and that lasted several years, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be, because I won my first Cody Award in 1974 and I was just telling Robert Bryan that I wanted for fashion at a price, because the editor at the time was Letta Sanford, and she came up to my office and said, "We're going to nominate you for CFDA award." No, it wasn't a CFDA award. It was the Cody Award, and said, "But we want to do it as fashion at a price." I said, "Why?" Because they knew I worked for Ralph, and that's what really sort of made me a little ticked off. So with that, then I went into my own business after that, and I enjoyed that, and had licensees and everything else. So that'll confuse everybody.
What was the hardest part about launching your own business?
Well, having to pay back the people that lent you that $150,000, because we struggled on a very small salary, and we literally did it night and day, and we became a very healthy business, but we couldn't grow the business because there wasn't enough money in the kitty to grow the business, and so that's a drawback. I mean, and we didn't have a lot of people, trust me. We just, I sold the product, designed the product, and, Nancy did public relations for me. And, we worked hard to do that. And then when J. Mar Ruby and Hart Schaffner Marx and Mr. Hickey Freeman in the back, when they recognized me and I said, I'm here, tell me what we need to do, they put all the money there for me and then said, you do it. And Bud Ruby said, you can squeeze orange juice, you can squeeze lemons and make the best lemonade, let's do it. And we did it. There's a saying that he used. There you go.
Well, what was the best part about launching your own brand?
The best part was being independent, being able to say, I'm the owner of that. But the short part is that you live within a budget and you just can't do all the things you want to do. But we actually, Bobby Stock and all the people that I'm talking about, we did launch with Elise Kroll the first menswear thing that became incredible. And we showed, even at Studio 54, we showed all the Men's Week. I mean, it was an incredible time.
Yeah.
Now that I've confused everybody, just to give you an idea, we did this thing with menswear, which was phenomenal. But I also did, with Eleanor Lambert, I did my women's wear shows there. And the things that are most memorable is Grace Mirabella coming to see me at the Plaza Hotel and saying I wouldn't miss the show for anything in the world. So, I mean, there were beautiful people, Mademoiselle, Diane, thank you. I mean, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the people that have been in my life.
Yeah.
Including Tom, that gave me an autograph from a great book that I keep and cherish about good grooming. Right, Tom? Thank you so much. You were with Esquire at the time. And Bob Beauchamp. All of these good people really were tremendous. And there's a guy in between with glasses. He doesn't want to be known, but Stephen Combe, the CFDA. But I'm grateful, and Lisette Chen, grateful.
Well, that's wonderful. I wonder if you can pinpoint one proudest achievement throughout your career that stands out.
Well, one of them, there's several of them, but the one pride that I got was doing the ASICS uniforms, for the ceremonial uniforms for the 1980 Olympics. I mean, took me to Japan. I worked day and night to get the clothes done.
Wow.
To make sure that everything was properly put together, and that it was, for the weather temperature that dropped, and we had to make sure that kept people warm who were doing the ceremonial things, and I did the torchbearer. That was one of the greatest achievements, I think, in my lifetime. And it's in fact, my son just texted me not too long ago. A friend of his went to the Lake Placid Museum where I have a complete thing there. Yeah, it was
amazing.
really amazing. And I said,
Great.
he said, my dad did that. You know? So it was really very touching.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then when Ralph Lauren was doing the uniforms while I was working there, I think they
He
were
did the
harkening back to
American
the
team.
1980.
He did the American team. I did the ceremonial
Inspired.
uniform, the torch running.
Yeah.
So it was really, and there was other people that did different teams, you know.
Yeah.
But I did the, what are you kidding? But mine was
You did the American.
ceremonial.
Yeah.
But no, but the thing that was, you know, that affected me is that at least I put my mark out there, which was really, really important.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I said everything. No, I've been practicing.
Well, I guess I have to ask the flip side of that. And if you have a hardest moment that you were able to overcome and learn from.
The hardest moment is when someone says, "Can you move aside for a minute? We want to take a picture of that gentleman." You know, I mean that happens. That inevitably.
I could see that.
That's something that, you know, anyone and everyone who has some sort of an ego understands. I mean, I love this business, and you know, there's a point in time when I look at movie stars and they're not getting the kind of jobs that they got, or that little boy who was in Raiders of the Lost Ark became a winner, an Academy Award winner. I mean, these are things that happen to us in life, and we need to accept them, and we need to understand them. I mean, I'm not so readily accepting it, you know, but I mean, I have to. There is no other way but to do that, and yet it's something that I can't teach that. You know, you can't say to someone, sometimes the light dims, but you can't tell them that. You want them to be in the spirit of gaining that acceptance and enjoying the fruits of their labor. That's what we need to do all the time.
Yeah.
I do that, right?
How do you get inspired for design? Where does that come from for you?
That comes from everything. Film was a very important part of that for me growing up, because I was a part of an immigrant family, and my brothers and sisters were all older than me. So every Saturday and Sunday I went to the film. I went to the Orpheum in St. Mark's on the Lower East Side, and then the Lower East Commodore. And I enjoyed those films because they inspired me, you know, and whether it was a musical or whether it was film noir, you know, where I would see something that was like, oh, I love the way that guy looks in the clothes, or I love the way she looks in the clothes. And I was inspired by that. You can't take that away from me. I still do that all the time. And I have another person like Bob Ryan, who really has always been an inspiration for me as an editor. Because, you know, we understood the same thing. I mean, I would just say, I love the way this person looks, and I love the way Clark Gable combed his hair, or the way Gary Cooper did his hair. You know, not his hair, but his clothes, his setup. So that was very important for me. And I tell all my students, too, I need them to go and look at the museums. I put them on Blackboard for them. They need to do their research. They need to be inspired to do those mood boards that will enable them to understand what they're showing, because they have to show the world. I'm sorry, I'm not sitting facing towards the other gang. Hi, gang. Hi. Oh, there's some of my pride students, but I want you to know that I did it all for them in excellence.
Yeah.
Right, Laura?
Have you ever been inspired by any particular places, or primarily film?
And it was primarily film with me, because it was easy for me to see and read, in a sense. I do get inspired by books, but it's a rarity. But film, to me, was like, you know, that's where you do it. That's where you get all this excitement from, you know, and it was very, very important for me at the time.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry, everybody out there, but just, hi.
What piece of advice would you have for a young designer on how to make themselves more, quote-unquote, hireable?
Well, I tell you, I think that, whenever they go out to a resource that they want to work for, they go there with the understanding of who that designer is, and then they create a package for them. They create a concept that shows them a mood board that says, this is what we are the essence of. I mean, I have students that would not do that if they would go on a job interview and they'd say, well, you can't go to that person because that person's not going to understand what you're doing now and what your design ability is. And yet I try to make them marry the interviewer and interviewee so that they can understand who they want to work for. And they need to judge that. I mean, it's a very important part of the process. That I want them to understand, and I think I tell that to them in class, that they need to be focused with that,
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you have any tips for a young designer who's starting out their career? I mean, it's the hiring tip, but I don't know what, the next step.
The hiring tip is that there are jobs, they need to search and hunt for them. I mean, I was playing with the computer yesterday, and there were certain things. They could start in retail. Product development in retail is an incredible opportunity. I remember doing stuff for Joe Gromack, who said to me, Sal, Nancy, you got to get together for us. We got to do something called Real Clothes. And I was in business, doing a very successful business. He said, we love your stuff, but we want to buy it private label. We want to do our own thing. So I would create and work with buyers, which was unheard of at the time. Yeah. But we did product development. So I'm saying they need to open their eyes and look at retailers and write to Nordstrom's, write to Saks, write to the product development departments and get that going. I mean, they got to be assertive.
Yeah. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah. Am I being good, Jeff? So, I mean, it's an amazing thing. If you're creative, from one thing you could be creative another thing. Just ask Charlotte. Yeah. That makes the most beautiful cakes in the world. I mean, she's brilliant. I mean, there isn't a bravo I don't give her because I see those delicious jewels. But I mean, that's
so you're saying if you're creative in the design space, you can be creative in how you get business.
Exactly.
And keep that business growing.
No, really and truly.
That.
I mean, I understand that Amazon is like the big thing, and yet there are those smaller versions of them, and there are the department stores still in existence. Even though they may be hurting, you can get a job.
Yeah.
And they need to be forceful and aggressive to do that.
Yeah. All right, I like that. So you had this amazing run as a designer. What motivated you to become a professor as a second career?
No, that's a hard question.
Some days when you're grading midterms, it's hard to say, right?
No, I said something to somebody that wrote me. I took pictures of the museum, Mr. Demede. I took pictures of the kids' clothes. They were students that I worked with at one point in time. And they said, well, what about menswear at FIT? And I said, well, we have a beautiful division that works on menswear. I said, but this was me taking pictures of kids that were women's wear designers. And the thing is that I want to be able to give of myself because I have that ability to help teach them. And I think that that's a very important thing. I mean, we all have to share our trade and our understanding, and that's what teaching did for me. And so I hope that I can extend that to the kids and make them successful.
Yeah, what have you enjoyed most yourself about teaching?
Me, I enjoy the fact that when you finally see a student that you say that fabric is going to be too hard to work on, and then you know that she goes out into the world, or she was upset, but she goes out into the world, and she's got one of the best jobs today as a designer. So wow. I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
I won't say your name. But,
apparently
but
she's here.
You know what I mean.
I mean, that's got to make you proud too if she's here. So
she is here.
Yeah.
So, but the thing
that's
is
enjoyable.
I mean, it was an honor to have Nancy Donahue work for Mademoiselle and wear my jacket. I'll never forget that in my life. It's hard.
Yeah. In your opinion, for aspiring designers, what are the greatest challenges that face them in this industry today?
Well, we're coming off a pandemic. But the thing is that we need to just be assertive in looking for those opportunities. And they are around them. They just need to search and find. If they're not prepared, I mean, my students in my class are prepared. I mean, I get, like slightly bent because I want to make sure that they learned everything. I mean, I have to follow a syllabus that says this, 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 but it doesn't tell them they need to know what cut, make, and trim is, because they don't, because they're not getting that in the class before me. And I say, that's where you go to the factory and he tells you to cut your shirt, to sew your shirt, and to make it, it's going to cost $50. They need to know that. They need to know how much yardage yield is important to them, especially if they're going to buy fabric. And they need to know when they go to Europe to buy fabric that they love that fabric that they spent thousands of dollars on, and they've got to make those clothes into that fabric, or else they're dead.
Yeah.
We don't want them to be dead. We want them to be thriving.
Yeah.
So, did I say it right?
That's great. Who do you feel like is the most interesting person you've met in your time throughout the career? Or several people?
No, there have been several of them.
And no more naming a person that's in the room. No.
No.
They can be in the room.
They're all here. So they're all here, and I mean, they're people that I have admired. I know. I don't. They're here and they're in the room, and the thing is that I've learned so much, I can't explain, when you ask me the questions about my career and everything. I mean, working for Frank Brothers and knowing Danny Zarum and going to Nashville, Tennessee to work on a store that was being created for Genesco. I mean, I met people, and there was no way of not knowing who they were, and they would say to me, "How about a cup of coffee?" And I say, "Oh, I don't like coffee." No, I mean, you just learn from the business, and it's amazing. And I need to tell them to lift their antennas up, because no matter who they meet, they got to store in their head that person eventually, or maybe, can be good for them in the future. And that's what happened to me from my high school days with the kids that I went to school with whose parents owned factories. They saved my life to make Ralph's first beginning of a collection, I mean, that was like, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been successful to Ralph at the time.
Yeah.
Right, Jeff? Yes. So, I mean, I have to just keep getting that assurance from Jeff, because really, we work together tirelessly.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I enjoyed all my trips. It was just amazing because I had so much to do. The thing that was missing was that I couldn't get a production staff. We didn't have one. We just had Tom. And if we didn't have Tom, we wouldn't have had nobody. I mean, we had the factory in Lanham. So, I mean, things like that, I can't teach them that, because that happens with experiences.
Yeah.
But I can tell them stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So am I okay as no one's sleeping, right?
I mean, I think, looking around the room, I think it's very clear that you have kept this wide network through the years, and I wonder if you have any tips on that. How do you keep your network strong, thriving, and so they want to show up at 4:10 on a Monday afternoon to hear you speak?
No, you need Jeffrey, because Jeffrey knows everyone's email, and he can get everyone for you. And don't worry, Steve's coming, and so is Fern. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, I thought she wasn't. No, but thanks, Fern. But, I mean, it's just an amazing thing for me, because I am honored by them, and it really is important for me to say thank you to them.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Did I end it? Sure. Thank you so much.
How you doing?
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you, Guy. I appreciate that from you. And then they have to just understand that there are sometimes someone whizzes by you, or someone doesn't accept, we live in a very sensitive business, right? And we know that we don't want to be amiss of something, but if we are, we can't hold that, we just have to let that go. I don't know how. Yeah, Stan, it's true. I mean, of course, you just need to say, well, that's that, you know. One of the things that I remember, which I went with Stanley and Fern to Washington, D.C., when Ralph was so enamored with an editor who died of breast cancer. And we went to, and Ralph donated a great deal of money, and we all met Mrs. Clinton, and you know, that was like a big joy in my life, and it's a big portrait that I have in my office. And that was something that I didn't want to forget, and I kept saying, I'm going to tell the world, because Ralph did a lot of that. And I wound up doing a little bit of something, because when Nancy died of carcinoid cancer, I donated to the Carcinoid Foundation. And they have come back to me saying that we have been inundated. We're grateful for your contribution. And they are making inroads right now with carcinoid. It is not like it was, 13 years ago when it was really devastating. But it's now they're trying to control it. So I get this from a friend of mine. So I just think that contributing to all of those things that happened, AIDS was a big devastation for me too. I mean, my son can tell you, we had people who were hairdressers and hairstylists and worked with us that got sick. And I remember going to a funeral parlor on 14th Street, and Carlos's brother was there because his mother and father weren't able to get there, and Nancy and I were there. But I mean, and then I did volunteer work. I think it was New York Hospital, right, Chris? For AIDS. I mean, you have to do something to give back.
Yeah. Oh,
and if it's not funding, it's of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it obviously speaks volumes. Big Heart has led to a huge network.
I don't know how big it is. But I tried.
Yeah. Well, kind of switching gears to probably a more shallow question, but my question is, do you have a favorite piece of clothing that you've kept with you through the years?
I wear my clothes, but I don't have a favorite piece, because I always think of the next piece will be my favorite. That's a story. No, but I really am. That's not one of my things.
Yeah. How about a favorite piece you've designed?
Yeah, things that I've designed. Of course, I enjoy them because they fit me.
Yeah.
But that's the truth.
Yeah.
But it's something that I should consider, but not really. I mean, I don't consider that. I mean, I'm so sorry about the question and not answering correctly, but I have to think about that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, as a class, we came up with 4 questions that we have asked every guest that we've had this semester. And those of you not familiar with our class setting, this is Spaces and Places in Fashion. We bring in a different amazing industry professional every week and hear about their expertise and their arena. And so kind of to tie them all together, our questions are these. What advice do you have for yourself as a recent graduate? If you could go back in time and talk to young 22-year-old you, what advice would you have for yourself?
Keep on the same path. I mean, I think that path took me to here. And I mean that sincerely. I had variations of this, voyage. Yeah. And it was an incredible voyage, but I wouldn't change a thing in it.
Yeah.
I would one thing, but I wouldn't change a thing.
So keep on the path, keep the end goal in mind.
I would do that constantly. I mean, I would relive this, except for one flaw that it had in my life, but that was about it. I mean, I would live this life again.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Okay.
Did I do good?
What do you feel like is the most important thing you learned on your first job that you took with you throughout?
To have my first job, in the fashion industries, it was 7th Avenue, like it wasn't 7th Avenue. I mean, I have to tell you, I dealt with people that, that take your breath away, and then there are those guys.
In a good way or a bad way?
No, in a good way, okay. And then in a bad way as well. It was a very gruff women's wear business when I started, and it was like not easy at all. And the people that went out there tooth and nail to get sales, and they really, I designed a dress company called Nan Leslie, and they wound up having an office in Long Island City. But the people that you worked with, were different than the people you saw in the showroom. The showroom people were the buyers from stores. They were always wonderfully dressed, elegant, and all of that. My best time was with the Baker brothers at Sport Tempo because they were charmers. They really knew how to sell a collection. They knew how to deal with people in good stores. Bloomingdale's was one of them. We had on the third floor, you could see the clothes there, even though they didn't have my label on it. But they were good people to work with, and I enjoyed that very much. Bobby Brooks was another story, but you know what I mean? But there's, I don't want to give them too much heartache, but that's the truth.
So, so the lesson you learned in the first job was to kind of accept all walks of life that you're gonna.
You have to.
Don't let people get inside your head, kind of.
Yeah, well, if they do, and you really are bothered by it, you can walk out the door, and that's up to you. In today's market, it's a little tougher, so they have to stay status quo. There's one thing I didn't when I was in high school and going before my first year of college. I worked for a guy named Abe Englander. Abe Englander Pattern Studio, where I would do, this is the God's honest truth, he would look at Women's Wear Daily and see all of the coats that were on the runway, and Orbax was going to buy them. And he said, Orbax is our customer. Well, we got to do it. We got to do coats for Orbax. Knock off those photographs. I said, oh my God. I had to knock off the photographs and do them like a flat. I mean, I did a flat articulated so that Abe could make the big pattern, I mean, it was like, that was what was 7th Avenue. Orbax went to Paris. We had to do every coat for Orbax. I said, Abe, I'm tired. No, we got to keep sketching. You got to keep doing more. So I said, okay. But I'll tell you something else that's going to warm someone's heart. When Nancy was a junior buyer at Bonwatello's, there wasn't a Mr. Mort dress that she didn't wear. The velvet top with the tapestry skirt was one that she said, look, I'm wearing Stan Herbert for Mr. Mort. So that was a very important thing for us. And so, see, I throw in all these tidbits, but I just want to make everybody here happy, right? Joe, are you okay? Bob? So, I mean, really, the stories are endless. I could go on and on, but I think everybody will be bored. Are you all doing okay?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Sure, thanks. I'll pay you as soon as we're finished with this.
I'm waiting for my sport day.
Yes. Joe Hunter was Ford Model Agency, and there wasn't a model I didn't have. Joe, I can't afford $5. I need them for. I need. Where's Tony Spinelli? All right, I'll get him for you. But you know what? You get him a suit of clothes. But it was a time when you could really do things with people, and they were giving you, and you had to give them back.
Yeah.
But it was very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think of a question that's not on the page, but I mean, what do you feel like has changed about the industry? You're saying it's a time, how much is different from when you were starting out to today?
The pandemic changed it. But if I could really convince, and I was trying to get MR Magazine to please reach out to the Nordstroms and the Saks and the Bloomingdales, and to really be out there and perhaps maybe create these opportunities for kids in product development. That's one way that they could really get into the business end of it.
Get the microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you all hear me now? Yeah, I'm so sorry. I keep moving my wand. It's my wand. So, and I have to tell you, there's one other thing that is important is teaching and being with people and colleagues like Steven Stippelman in the fashion art department that I really enjoy immensely. And it gives me great gratification to know that I'm being a part of that group, which is wonderful for me.
Yeah.
So now that I jump from one to another, you try to figure that one out.
Well, our third capstone question for the class is, what do you hate about the fashion industry?
I don't hate anything.
That's PC and you're willing to share with the room.
No, I really don't hate anything about it. I feel that I can't protect them when they go into the world of business because there's a competitiveness that they're going to find with colleagues and associates. Ask Duffy, he knows where I went through. I mean, see, he's smiling in the back. There's something that happens when someone says, gee, Sal, this is incredible. You're doing such a great job. I mean, J.M.R. Ruby and Hart Chapter Marx, they wanted to buy my label for $1 million. And I said, I'm not selling it. I'm not doing that. I'm happy with myself, being myself, and having the jobs that I had. It was just torturous at one point in time. But there's nothing bad about the industry. It's some people sometimes that you're confronted with, but you have to just sort of like put them aside. They go in, they're like, get that roach. No. But I mean, it happens. Competition is there. I mean, they have to learn how to survive in that world.
Yeah.
Did I do good, kids?
What do you think is the biggest macro trend that's going to affect the industry in the next 5 years?
Let me say this. I think that people who want to develop something technical or what have you can do it. I mean, little did we know we could do things on Facebook and Instagram that would give us exposure to product. How much of it, I don't know. I think that people need to be aware of that and create another entity to that. There isn't a website anymore that people could go to and really acknowledge and say, oh, we can buy from this person and that person. There's so many people that are trying that, but it's really a hands-on situation where you really need to communicate with people, especially in fashion. I mean, that's so essential.
Yeah.
I hope I answered that question.
I think so. Yeah. So communication.
Well, communication is important, but if they don't continually promote themselves, they never will succeed. I mean, there was a thing I did a long time ago. I did a necktie agenda. Remember, Chris? And that necktie agenda, I went to Bloomingdale's with it, and they said to me, gee, Sal, I took pictures of 7 ties for 1 tie a week, including Saturday and Sunday. And I said, you got to buy these. And I said, and here's the brochure that I developed. And they said, God, we can send it to all our customers, which were in the thousands and thousands. But they wanted to buy it for nothing, and so I didn't sell it for nothing. And we did it with our own mailing list, and we were successful with it, but in a small way. It took too much work to do, so I disbanded it.
Yeah.
But they need to be clever and understand that.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you for coming.
Well, I think that's all my questions on the page, but obviously we have a lot of people out here who will have some probably.
Steve, you need to...
I want to just, we are so blessed to have Sal in our department teaching fashion design. And one day, Christopher showed me your resume, and well, I knew who you were. And I said, we got to hire him. And Chris said, what, anything. We got to hire him. I remember you came up without a portfolio. And I said, what difference does that make?
It's funny because I did. This was like 2015, 16, I think it was, Stephen.
Yeah.
And they said to me, don't you have a portfolio? And then one of the faculty said, if Christian Dior came here, he would show us a portfolio. And I said, no, I think he's dead. I mean,
but also, I observed him in a classroom, and it was this is him in the class. And the students were mesmerized. And I was only thinking if they only knew who he was, because he was early on, and he's very humble. We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Over here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing.
oh, you're welcome. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
I was wondering, when you're opening up your company, who are your first investors? Is it friends and family, or are you going to...
No, they were not family, thank God. Actually, they were just bankers. One was a banker, and another one was an investor. And it was a trying experience for me because The one investor had a son that was very ill, so we had to make sure that our payments were on a timely basis. And, when you're starting a company on $150,000 and you need to buy fabric, you need to understand a budget. I mean, if you want to create a business that's $500,000, you have to buy fabrics that are X amount of dollars, and you have to find the factory to make those, and which I did. I went to Vineland, New Jersey to get my first clothing made in Vineland. So you need to understand budgeting. And when I was in women's wear, that was something the company did. I mean, but I understood it because I kept wanting to know the questions. I wanted to know the answers. So I was very, I meddled a great deal just so I could find out what's going on. And that was very important, and that's what you need to do. You can always buy fabric at Mood for a dress and sell that dress as long as you have a size that one fits all, or you can create a dress that you can manipulate to become that other customer if she's a size 10 as opposed to a size 8. But you can do that. You can shine all you want with social media, because I see kids that do that now for us here. And I'm so proud of some of those kids, and they're showing you how they're working on bridal clothes and dresses and stuff. So you can do it, but you got to do it with a budget, and you just can't go over the budget. I wish you the very best. You're welcome.
What else is out there? Right here. Let's grab a student then.
There's someone behind you, Diane.
What impact are you trying to make in the fashion industry as a CFDA member?
What impact? China was, for me, in sportswear, was important because I produced shirts there at a factory called Kylon Factory. And they did my men's shirts and stuff. And they were very important, unfortunately, because we needed to get things made at a very cost-efficient price. But we also monitored what they did, and they had to make sure that they did so many stitches per inch and that the shirts were of the highest standard quality, which they were. But China was a great deal for me.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
That wasn't my question, no.
I was wondering if I misheard. Yeah, what? You want to repeat that? Yeah.
What impact are you trying to make as a CFDA member?
Trying to make.
Or
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? It's okay.
what? Oh. Yeah.
What impact are you trying to make as a CFDA member?
What impact? I don't know. When they call on me, I'll be able to do whatever I need to do. No, but the thing I'm so sorry. I thought I heard China. I'm so sorry. You did too?
I'm standing right next to her.
Okay, and I just want you to know that the CFDA is an important investment in every young person, because you are who you show you are. And if you can create a collection and they can accept you and you can pay the dues or whatever it is that they stipulate, being a CFDA member is a very important thing. It is important for your retailers. They would love to say CFDA member, a young designer coming to visit us on our Saturday morning or whatever. It's a very important thing. And it was important to me, and still is important to me, because I still do my contributions. But I mean, that's something that I really stress to my students, because without that, I mean, it's like the Cody Award was just an award. It wasn't something that gave you an award, but it didn't give you the ability to be talked about at one session or not. Or if you go to a meeting with them and you want to, if there's a show and tell, I mean, you'll have opportunities with the CFDA. And I hope that all of you who are listening will realize that. It's a very important thing. Did I answer that now? Is that good? Oh, yes, Diane?
This is, where, I want to know what part of Italy were your parents from?
My father's parents were from a place an hour or so from Milan. It was called Borghera, and Christopher had done some research on it. And my father, his mother was from Borghera, and then my father was moved to a convent, and then in the lower hinterlands called Sicily. And so, and they came prepared to be the tailors that they were. But my father was from Borghera, the north part. And we had delightful times in Italy with my son, doing our photo shoots with Fabrizio Gianni, who was a sweetheart of a guy sometimes when he slept, but he was really a sweetheart. And I have to tell you, it was like a chore. No, it wasn't. But I don't know if he did anything for Esquire or GQ, but he is and still is a brilliant photographer.
And so you were born and raised on the Lower East Side?
I was born and raised on the Lower East Side, between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Katz was on 2nd Avenue, and it was the greatest time of my life, in actuality. I grew up waiting at the police station during Christmas Eve so that we can get our free gifts. And it was a very heartwarming experience. My experiences was the soul of the people that lived in that neighborhood, and they were mostly tailors and mostly people that all immigrated together, and you just knew these people, and they were part of you.
Wow.
Thanks, Diane, for asking. Yes.
Who are some of the designers that are working today that you really admire and think are talented?
I knew you would stump me with that one.
That's a good question. Don't say it.
I just want to hold that one, Steve, because I'm not that I'm not totally aware. Roseberry is a kid that graduated here, and he worked for Tom Brown, and he's doing Schiaparelli. I'm so sorry, Schiaparelli, and he was one of the things I showed in the class. And I know that you're putting me on an edge, but he is a brilliant kid that came from here, and I tout him as best I can because I wanted.
Student of yours?
He wasn't a student of mine. I think he was a student of Steven Stippelman in the back, and when his fashion show evolved, I did research on it, and I went back and I looked at the reasons he was using Dante's Inferno, and the reason he used the figures on the dresses, and the reason he used the red dress on Rojo, I forget her name, the singer, and he beaded her in red, which was hell. And then people who were at the show didn't understand the show of the line of show, because he said it, he got his inspiration from Dante's Inferno. And they were the three things that were important for him, and so he put them on the costumes, just simply so that people would be reminded that he was doing it based on that theory. But it's important you bring that to mind for me, because when I tell the students that they have to create some kind of inspirational board, that once the clothes are away from the board and they are on a hanger and on a rack in a store, no one's going to know that was inspired by Dante. They're going to just see beautiful fabrics. And that's what they need to be able to understand and do. And so this thing about theses and getting yourself creative and doing things that are like pie in the sky. But his was not. His was brilliantly done. Those clothes were, I used parquetry because I used some words that I went to look for because of the shield that he did in wood, which was like parquet flooring. How beautiful was that? To see that but look at all the people that were at the awards, the music awards. They were all wearing Roseberry's clothes for Schiaparelli.
He's terrific.
Right. They were. Thank you so much.
I just wanted.
Yes.
Can I ask?
Of course.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to say it's such a pleasure to go back in history with somebody who really has true history. Too little of it is done in our industry. Much more should be done. But I think the most important thing for me and for everybody here to know about Sal is that he really is a good designer. He is one of the essence. He's the essence of what good design.
Thank you.
Is in this. I'm not bullshitting. I'm not bullshitting you.
Thank you so much. I was hoping you would.
But his career, the arc of his career, his relationship with his wife, his relationship with the people that work, is a beacon for us, and we should be very proud of it. So I just want to tell you that, my dear. Thank you.
Thank Thank you. That's very kind of you. And how much do I owe you?
Other questions out there? Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'm so sorry, I heard China. I don't know how you.
I can understand why.
I'm still thinking about that. You know, that's like, oh my goodness. I mean, Joe. I mean,
It's okay. You're good. Yeah.
kidding.
Hello.
Hi.
What is your advice for young students and designers trying to break into the industry and find their first job or internship?
It is not easy, but it is simply one that you need to go after. Look at everything that's in front of you. As I said, try to talk to the retailers as well who are doing product development. As a young designer, you want to show yourself and be in business for yourself, I presume. But if it's not for yourself now, there are these companies that still exist that you need to hunt, search, and find, and then say, and look at them carefully. Look and see what they stand for so that if you want to go for an interview, you are prepared for that interview. You're not giving them something that's a baseball bat as opposed to what they're doing. You need to be able to romance what they're doing so that you can get that job, the first job. Is that clear? Does everyone understand that?
So research and persistence is key.
Yeah, you need to research the company you want to work for. It's like you don't want to go to Saks when you want to really be at Nordstrom's, which is a different kind of store. But they believe they're the best. So you want to just make sure that whomever you are attracted to in the industry, and there is an industry, and we do have opportunities for you here, internships, right? That you can follow up on that. That's a good sign for you if you want to do that.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome, really.
Other questions?
Oh, God. Amy. There you go.
Hi, Sal.
Oh, it's
How are
so
you?
good to see you, Amy.
It's good to see you too. So I was a student from Parsons back in 2015 or something, and I'm so glad to be here, hearing all your history and your
Thank you.
childhood, how you're born in Lower East Side and all that stuff. I remember you always started your class by sharing your like scraps of newspapers on weekend, like on WWD, New York Times Fashion, and I personally enjoyed it at the time so much and appreciate it. And I'm wondering if you still do that and you still share those things with your students and what you were trying to teach your students by doing that at the time.
First of all, I'm honored that you're here, and Amy was my student at Parsons, but she has become one of the greatest artists that I can tell you, and she does these weavings that are so beautiful. I have missed every show that she's ever, no, really, and you know, it's always been a time when it was quite difficult for me. But, you know, being able to explain to the student body, you know, is one thing, and learning that if they don't get into that particular avenue of what they want to do, they can't just, they're talented no matter how you slice it, correct? And you've used that talent so beautifully. And you know your stuff sells, and people want your clothes and want your artwork so much today. And when you were doing clothing in school for me, you know, there was always your signature of that brocade fabric, that unique fabric that was so beautiful. But yeah, now you're creating beautiful works of art. So we got to get everyone here to come to the show. Hi, Fred. I mean, really and truly, I was blessed with you and the people in the back, you know, that I am witnessing and seeing, which is really important.
She was wondering about the tears that you started your classes with, the newspaper tears, and what your intention was by sharing those with the class.
So that they can understand a little bit more
About the industry as a whole.
about the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was important because I did something with Women's Wear Daily and New York Times, because there was an article that appeared in the New York Times that was blessed this mess. And it was something that was a collage of all the designers, and some of them perhaps are not existing today because of AIDS. But they all created these incredible mood boards. And I wanted the kids to understand that people need to see where your head is at. So was I good at that?
Yeah.
That's all that counts.
That's why we have this class too.
Yeah, and
In
that's
the industry,
true.
you can design, you can be a really talented designer, but if you don't understand the way the industry works,
Yeah.
or
And
what's
you're-
happening out there,
right.
you're going to have.
We don't want them to be lost.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. That's great.
You put me on the spot. No, but I think that, I just think that there's room for everybody, and we just need to be able to do that, you know? It's a very important part of the process.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of going like this and like this.
Yeah.
So I
It's
just
a big room. What are you going to do? Other questions out there?
Yes.
In the way back, we're making you work out. Sorry.
This is a much less complex question, but I was just wondering, you say you draw a lot of inspiration from films, and I was wondering what's your favorite film that you ever watched, if that's
You know,
an answer.
it's funny that you should say that, because I have quite a few favorite films. You know, the one thing, if I was doing evening wear, I would look at this Cleopatra movie with Claudia Colbert, which I would think is the most incredible clothes that she's ever worn. I mean, they were slinky, beautiful evening clothes. I mean, that would have inspired me a mile a minute. And yet, you know, when I look at Gone with the Wind, and I see, what's her name, Carol Burnett doing the takeoff of Gone with the Wind with the big shoulders, and she's using the curtains. I mean, these are things that rest in my mind. I mean, how can I be able to tell you these stories? Because they exist in my head. But film has always been, you know, there's always, I'll tell you what film that was very, very important for me was the Chanel film, where Coco Chanel is looking at the monastery, and she's looking at the nuns, and she's looking at the white collars and the cuffs. And she was inspired by that. And she was inspired by jersey from men's clothing. The men's shirts and T-shirts were being made out of in Paris. And she loved that. And she designed those kinds of smart clothes that were knitted, you know, knitted jackets. I mean, she was inspired by the nunnery. God bless her. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, so there are things that, you know, I can't tell that to all the kids, because when I say an icon, it could be a new rock star, you know? It could be someone who's singing something brand new in the world, you know? But we need to be able to look at that as students and be inspired by that. I do good.
Yeah. Other questions? I see there's some over here.
Yes, this.
I'm coming.
Patty.
Put my roller skates on.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I have a big mouth, but hi, everybody.
Hi,
hey,
Patty.
you. How are you?
I'm good, Patty. Thank you so much for coming.
It's great to see you.
I love you both, you know.
Wonderful to hear these stories and take us back down memory lane. I have a question, because you've been talking about tailoring, and you've been talking about these beautiful fabrics, and you just cited Coco Chanel's inspiration with textiles. Do you see a difference in textiles today, the quality in clothing today from when you started and you were really talking about tailoring?
Yes, immensely. The thing is that today we live in a new technology era, so we have to be aware of that. But you know, the thing about Roseberry and his clothes and the palettes that were made out of silver and the wood beads that were on the dress, I mean, they're things that we ordinarily wouldn't have thought of, you know, to become clothes, and yet they're clothes, and they're beautifully done. And you have this whole new generation of rock stars and singers that are wearing him. They all wore him at the awards. I mean, I felt so proud for that kid that Stephen said to me, you know, he was my student. I said, well, I'm going to defend that kid because he's such a bright kid. And so even though people watching in the media were so upset with him, that I voiced my opinion, and my daughter would be really angry because she would know that I wrote something and said, why did you look at the line of show, will you? And those were the three things that he was doing. So, but that's the case in point, you know. We live in new technology. We have to create in those fibers and those things, and the tinsel things on that dress that is still worn today. I mean, being worn in the show and also being worn at the awards dinner. So, I mean, that's I need to understand that too, and that's why I do my research with the kids, right? And they're shaking their heads in the back of you because they know. I mean, I look at all of that because it's very important to me. You know, as a designer. Did it make you a little crazy? Thanks, Harry. And Nancy's sitting over here.
Yeah. Okay. Do you still love magazines?
You know what? I swear to you, I wish that I could really sit with you, and there are so many new things that are happening, and they're all e-magazines right now. Even Women's Wear Daily is e, and MR is e. I mean, that's what's holding them together, and they're not, you know, I wish we can get to paper, because I used to love to tear sheets and put them in my mood boards. I mean, Harry, you're asking the question. We are so ripe for getting magazines out there, right, Bobby? And getting magazines it's our time. These kids need to know that. It's our time to do fashion and magazines and communicate with 7th Avenue and try to get those showrooms operating again, because the rents are going to be so inexpensive down there. I hope that CFDA makes up their mind. No, I'm sorry. I'm whispering, but you're right, Harry. And we need more of that. We do. We need more of that. And there's so many magazines that you know, whether it be, I say German Vogue, but some of the magazines that I always bought are not even there at Rizzoli. It's so sad, right? You know, we got to bring them back. Anybody here going to do that? No, we got to bring them back.
Do you believe they're coming back?
Oh, yes. Charlie.
Yeah, MR Magazine's back in print. Just so you know.
Oh, we are back in print?
Yes, 5 times.
Oh, good. When did that happen? Just recently, right?
This year.
You see, Harry, we get. No, thank you so much. I mean, Women's Wear Daily is still not in print. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, there wasn't a day that I wouldn't imagine that to happen. You know, that's why.
We're doing it.
Thank you.
A couple more questions.
No hard questions, please. Like Stephen.
What are your thoughts about the direction of men's fashion today? What's happening?
What's happening today?
What are your thoughts on men's fashion today and what's happening?
Yeah, let me tell you, my thoughts are that some of these youngsters that are designing those clothes, because I've had that when I did menswear about 4 years ago here. I mean, they look for the elitist, the guy who wants that very progressive look, and they're inspired by that. And whether it is marketable, that's another story. And, you know, and I can't tell anybody, well, you know, there are jobs available at the Gap and Banana Republic and whatever. And I don't even know if Banana Republic is still alive, but I know the Gap is. But the fact remains is that they need to monitor themselves to either get those first jobs, because if they want to make those clothes that are fast and, you know, in a frenzy, they can do that and still gain that 1 or 2 customers and say, look who I'm dressing. I mean, look at the runway story in the Academy Awards with some of the guys who are wearing funny clothes. But that's because they're individualists, you know, and they want to wear that. It's not for me to say, that's not, excuse me, my cup of tea, but it's not. But at least I have to romance that. I want the kids to be inspired by what they want to be inspired by. I mean, there's no right and wrong way when you're designing something. And I can't tell a student that, you know, some of the kids that are in class, I always wind up I do like a lot of renderings. I'm exhausted at the end of the day, right? And it never ends at 6 o'clock. I mean, that's when my class ends. And I'm giving them renderings because I say to them, why don't you think about this? And they look at me and say, are you kidding? I mean, because they don't want to do that. They want to do what they want to do. And of course, I admire what they want to do. but I also want to make them viable. And that's a very hard line, because you have students in your hand that you want to have them give you the creativity that they want to give themselves, right? So did I say that right? And thanks for the magazine. I'll be looking forward for my copy.
Probably time for like one more question. There is one. Well, thank you so very much. Did I miss some? Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you, and thanks to everyone who showed up. I'm here every week, so if you want to come back again, feel free. You can follow along on Instagram at Prof. Caroline FIT if you want to see who we have coming next. But
thank you so much. Let me just shut this.